Hello, I'm Sharon.
And I'm Wendy.
Welcome
Welcome
to
to
Brown
Brown
Space.
Space.
This is a safe space where we talk about the hard topic of racism.
And build empathy through the healing power of conversation.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So how many races are there? We could Google it, but let's play. We've we've already you named two, the African descent, right?
Mhm.
And the Caucasian, which I guess we would say what is that? European isn't even old enough.
But that's what we usually use to describe um, people of, you know, the lighter
Uh-huh.
hue. But then you
Right.
have the in-between hue, right? And it's funny that you should say that because that's what Pastor was talking about yesterday, about the three different races, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, which were the three sons of Noah.
Yeah,
Ham
yeah.
being black, Shem being brown, and Japheth being of the lightest hue.
So brown, does that embrace the Asian?
I would think so because they're not light.
Mhm.
Now, in
Well,
terms of
not
F,
Caucasian.
huh?
They're not Caucasian.
No.
Like Asian is definitely a totally different set of, like you said, biological factors,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the skin colors, there's a variety. And what I love is how I'm going to steal your word, infused the world is becoming, because now you're having, you know, all of it. Now, okay, wait, back it up, Wendy. Are there only three races? Like three basic races?
I think out of the three, then spawns all these other hybrids, for lack of a better way of putting it, right? If I'm looking
Branches?
at it from a biblical point of view.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so if you're thinking literally light, medium, and dark, it's three. It's three.
Right.
Now, who falls under the dark? Who
Yeah.
falls in between in the medium? There's like a lot going on there because you've got um, the Middle East,
Yeah. Again, different. And then
right?
what about, Native Americans and South Americans, indigenous people
Right.
are, even though they're spread out over two continents, two hemispheres, are they actually more related? So would you actually say that's one race? And, are they
Migration over time and how the
right?
continent and the earth started to break apart and how we ended up, you
And if
know.
you look at, I think, the histories too of, like, that whole Bering Strait idea that, like, Mongolians, ancient, came over from Asia, through the Bering Strait, Alaska, and down into the Americas. I mean, maybe it could be argued that the, as you say, brown is one race,
Hmm.
but it's so ancient. And
You
then
know,
all these
even
other,
the idea of the black Jew, right? Because
yeah,
there are Ethiopians who are darker than me that are devout Jews of, the
yeah,
Jewish culture and religion.
yeah,
But the mind, the way we've been brainwashed to think, when you think Jewish, you only see a particular physiological um, kind of person. So there's so much to be learned in terms of our history and who we are
yeah,
and where we came from
yeah.
and where it all began. And now look at where we are and how did we get here? If we could go back and see that we are one.
One family, one family. Yeah.
So there's so much.
Well, that's kind of a cool way to lead into why the heck are we here today?
Yes. We do this a lot, right? We talk a lot, but it is what we have come to realize that it is healing.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is why we're here. We want to share our space,
Yeah.
brown space, with everyone else.
Now, we should talk about why we call it, excuse me, brown space. We just talked about, three races, brown being one of them, and we're not talking about a race.
No,
In terms
we're not.
of three, we're talking about a race meaning the one family and common ground. You have an
Absolutely.
incredible background in color understanding. Why don't you talk about what brown means?
Incredible, I don't know, but I do have some. I do have some understanding from my biblical studies, and as a worshiper, just colors are a significant part of being a person who worships in the dance. And so colors have significance, and because of that, I have had to do studies, whether they were required based on what who I was with at the time in terms of studying, or I just out of curiosity myself doing self-study. And so we were talking about colors, and how that all started was we were too busy, so busy, don't seem to have time for anything, even for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you made mention about having
White space,
space.
right? I need more white space. But we were talking about race. Like, we were really talking about race. So when I said, I need more, it was like, and we both burst into laughter because we knew white space. It was like, wait a minute, but we're talking about not being so predominantly white in our culture, please. So
Yeah,
that was a funny moment.
yeah. So with that, we thought, well, we were talking about, well, what can we call it? And I thought, well, how about brown
Yeah,
space?
yeah,
Brown is a color that is means humanity. It's
yeah.
natural. It's earth tone. Um, it's in the middle. It's either or. It's a combination of both,
It's
right?
not,
And
not,
so that's
yeah.
how we came up with brown space, a safe space uh, to talk and have honest, genuine conversation, because conversation is healing.
The
Yes?
opposite of polarization, right? Because we use black and white. Like, I'm looking at the picture behind you. There's a black background and then the white um, X over it, which oh, it's the Star of David. That's right, and it meshes into the Lion of the tribe of Judah.
Yes.
Um, with brown mane. Oh, it's perfect. And the black and the white, though, we use it so often to say, um, oh, I see this as black and white, either or. And somebody else will say, this is not a black and white issue. And then in our vernacular, we polarize black and white with metaphor all the time. And then we start talking about blacks and whites. So, of course, we're going to be polarized in our conversation about race. I think the brown space, which actually, girl, it was my idea.
This is true. You're right. You're right.
And you were like, oh my gosh. And then you flooded me with all this information about why brown was so powerful a color. That was like, oh my gosh, this is a God moment. But yeah, that's why having neutral coming together space is so important, and tilling the ground with gardening together. We can pull out the weeds, plant the good, cultivate the good. Oh, there's some more weeds never stop.
Yeah, it's a part of nurturing.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm.
And so there has to be, as you said, that tilling and tending to and caring for.
Yeah.
And so I think that caring for is a big part of it. I remember when you texted me and you left that very long message in a text of concern. And I was just coming from the supermarket and I didn't even leave the parking lot. I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and call her
That's
because
a good friend.
she is a good friend. And
We haven't
we
talked in like a year, Sharon.
we'd done the short little messages and texts. Hey, how are you?
I haven't
So
actually had a conversation in a long time.
yeah, about a year. So that text really was like, it was so long. I said, no, I can't do a short, hey, I'm fine. Because you were obviously, your heart was troubled, and I wanted to reach out to you. And so I did. And one of your questions in the text was, are you okay? And I was like, what happened? What do you mean? So,
Right, because I was still responding. Well, everyone was still responding to George Floyd's murder, but this was like 5 or 6 days later that I texted you. And so it made you think there was something new, something yet like another one, you know? You're like, what else happened, you know?
And so, I was grateful for your concern, but also wanted to point out to you that it wasn't anything that was new, right? The
Right.
conversation on race and the inequities and the injustices have been going on for a while. It might have brought some things to light with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, but we can go back and Trayvon Martin, how many years ago was that? And we can go back and, further back and still come up with just hundreds of names of people being treated unjustly,
Mhm.
right?
I think the difference for, I'm not going to say most, but I'm going to say a large contingency of white United Statesians um, is that many of us are aware of these goings on only when there are riots and only when it's in broad daylight on a video on YouTube. I mean, that there was no way to sort of in the back of your mind say, well, who's reporting on this? What's the whole story? You know, there was no way to deny it's right there in full living color. um, Something so horrific. And then when you very gently said to me, well, Wendy, this is not new. The Black community is sort of used to this. I was like, okay, that's not all right. I can't, I can't not do something anymore. But it was you were very honest and direct, but you were kind about it, and you didn't have any anger in your voice and or resentment, not certainly not towards me. So even if and I did, I had to work through a lot of sort of, white fragility guilt, which is something we can go into more. But I had to work through that. But I also was just welcome to grow out of it quickly by your kindness.
Awesome.
So yeah, that conversation was so pivotal. And you know, what did I ask you next? It was, what do I do with all of this?
What do you do? Yes. And so it's, that whole when there's a realization or that brick falls on your head or you get thrown some cold water on your face and it's like, okay, what do I do with this? And you feel this sense of urgency, and there's a rush of emotions, and okay, I need to do something. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And we run out sometimes without even really thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, what's
Mhm.
going to be the result of it, right? And
Mhm.
from my teachings, those are like questions that you should be asking all the time and everything.
Yeah.
And so my suggestion was start where you are. Start with
Mhm.
what's in front of you, because every day we have an opportunity to speak out. We have an opportunity to make a difference, to make a change, to make an impact all day long. God will put
Yeah.
in front of us those opportunities to be who He has called us to be, which is salt and light. But because of our comfortability or fear and or all those other reasons that we could get into and we have in some of our conversations, we don't. So my suggestion was just in the little things, start
Yeah.
there.
And the little things, I mean, it takes courage to use your voice and with kindness, like you did, to speak or post. It takes courage, and I would love for us to unpack, maybe not right at this moment, but talk about, you know, why so many white people might be afraid to actually use their voices. There's so many reasons, I think. And that brick hits all of us at different moments, but just because it hasn't hit those 20 people over here doesn't mean that you should be quiet if you're ready to start. And that it was the best advice that you gave. Just what comes. Instead, don't let it pass you by. Don't miss the moment, like so many. And for me, it just was very humble beginnings. It was Facebook, you know. Um, Friends would post things that I might not agree with, and I would, instead of just go, ugh, I don't want the conflict, I would sit with it for a moment and I would say, okay, is this something I need to respond to? How do I respond to this? So that I'm not finger wagging. I'm not, you know, I want to approach it the way Sharon approached talking to me. I want to do it with kindness but directness. So all of a sudden, it started snowballing, and I got pretty good at doing it on social media, which is still a little bit distant. It's still not like a one-on-one conversation, and it can explode, as we all know, but it's definitely different when you're actually talking to people. And in this COVID state that we live in, there's less of that going on. But once in a while, a little thing comes up, or I'll be talking to somebody on Zoom, like a one-on-one conversation, and an opportunity will come up, and I don't try to do the whole spiel of what I believe, or talk about an entire huge topic that needs attention, but a little seed here, like we just said, cultivating. Because I want to circle back, Sharon, and you you said conversation is healing, and I didn't think about what a what a powerful statement that is at first, because we've been talking for a couple of months now, and I really dived into what does that mean, conversation is healing, because you brought it up. So you want to share your ideas on that?
Well, I think that there's that piece that happens when people are in real conversation with each other, right? There is a level of understanding that grows from that, and empathy builds. Okay, we can all day long say, "I'm gonna do it, make a change," and Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, but until we can really stop and talk and be honest,
Mm-hmm.
in love with one another, and grow a relationship and understanding, empathy is where it all starts. Because now I know what it's like in a particular situation for you.
Mm-hmm.
I can empathize with you. I
Mm-hmm.
can then say, oh wow, okay, like you said, this is just not right.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? If that were me, what is it that could happen for me to make a change and to make a difference? And that just doesn't poof fall out of the sky and there you are, you have an understanding. It takes conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. And I love the word. I mean, when I picked the word apart, con means with, and verse, word, speaking with. We speak with each other, not at each other, not against each other, not to even, but with.
Yeah, I hear a lot of phrases and talk about what it's going to take, and I hear yes, conversation is it, and empathy is it, and you know, but how many of us are really
Mm-hmm.
talking with each other, or are
Mm-hmm.
we just trying to get information so we can take it and run with it and go and do another thing that comes from a totally different place? Right. This is why I like the idea of brown space because it's, I'm not an expert on racial issues, and I don't think you are either, right? We do have our accomplishments and achievements. You're a full professor. I am an adjunct professor. You're in the arts. I'm also in the arts. You music, dance. I have a coaching consulting firm. You have a music where you train others to be as wonderfully awesome with your beautiful operatic voice as you. We have of those things that we can say we are um, accomplished in our own right in. But that's not what it is that's needed necessarily. What's needed is for everyone to have an opportunity to speak and to use their voice. And this is why we created Brown Space. Not that I'm so wonderful with whatever I know or think I know, or vice versa, but it's to create a space where we can feel safe enough to talk to each other, learn about each other, learn about the things that are important and what we as individuals can do to help
Mm-hmm.
each other to heal and to move forward and then to help others. So that's what we're hoping that our brown space will do.
Yeah. Being an expert is not what it's about. It's about encouraging each other to ask the hard questions and allowing one another to be ignorant, to show that ignorance, and then to find the answers together through that empathy that you're talking about, so that your experience and my experience can start to become more of a shared experience where we bridge gaps and fill in chasms with that brown dirt.
Sounds
That
good to me.
rich soil. I love gardening analogies, which is ironic because I have not been a successful gardener in my time.
You have a brown thumb, as they say.
No, they're black. My thumbs are black. Which is, see, isn't that funny how we use color? Again, we can come back to that. We use color sometimes to be derogatory, sometimes to be empowering. And, we were talking about that too. Like, black can have many negative connotations, like I just said, black thumbs, where I kill things. But then you pointed out, what was it about the color black itself is actually not a color.
Right. When you think about the spectrum of colors, right? Black absorbs all those colors.
Yeah.
So what power is in that? So when
Right?
I think of Black, I think power, not in a negative way, but an amazingly colorful, awesome
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And white, we can also say, oh, white's bright, white is all the colors combined, white is, clean and pure, but it's also bland, flat, static, pasty. So we can glorify or debase anything, but the point is not to do that. The point is to go, what are our preconceived notions or what we've been raised with that would create that polarization? Okay, let's look at those. It hurts. It's like pulling that band-aid off slowly. And then, but then we start to build. We start to build, and instead of living with the polarization, we start to come more towards the equator. Now I'm using way too many analogies.
Yeah, though analogies work, and I guess as instructors and professors, we
What we
do
do.
that a lot. It's a habit. I know I do it a lot too. And when you talked about that, showing the bad side of us or who we are in real conversation, that's a good thing. That's being genuine and that's
Yeah.
being authentic. And authenticity is an important place to be when you are being or becoming, better with someone.
Mhm.
Okay, in our relationship, in our conversation, if I cannot be naked, or
Mm.
as you put it, show the underbelly, is that how you put
Yeah,
it?
very soft underbelly.
Of who you are, then it's fruitless. We're
Yeah,
just going to be spinning our wheels.
yeah.
So we do have to come from that place of genuineness and authenticity in our brown space conversation.
And that actually comes from a scripture that you and I were talking about too. That idea of showing, not being afraid to show yourself. It's
Matthew, you got it?
I
Yay!
have it, baby. This is part of Christ Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. It's from Matthew 5, verse 14 and 16. Um, and this translation is the Message Bible. So Jesus says, "You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors of the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives by opening up to others. You'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven." Oh, and we were talking about the God colors.
Yes.
That's where it's at.
Mm,
Not hiding.
mm-mm. So we want to invite everyone, all of you, to join us in Brown Space. We have a YouTube channel called Brown Space. So we hope that you will subscribe and share and like. And you're better at remembering email addresses. If they want to email us, what is that?
It's brownspace2020, the year, at gmail.com.
Awesome.
Brownspace2020 at gmail.com. Yeah.
Yeah, so we really want, to hear from you. What would you like for us to talk to you about, or talk with you about? Um, just having honest, authentic conversations that will empower us and ignite us to want to act and
Mhm.
to make positive changes. Uh, it is a space where we will not welcome or acknowledge any kind of partisan um, conversation or derogatory, excuse the pun, off color type
Yeah,
of
right.
statements.
Mhm.
But we do want to hear from you. So please do join us.
Yeah, Brown Space is a safe place for my dear friend Sharon Hill and me, Wendy Reynolds, to come together, chit chat, and hopefully meet some new people too.
All
Build a
right.
community.
Awesome. We look forward to hearing from you.